Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and get started. It's scheduled for 1 o'clock and it looks to me to be 2:59. So as most of you know, this is a public safety working group. We've looked at how our public safety personnel have had some problems in the past with regard to retention and recruiting, and Speaker Burns asked me to chair a committee to look at the specifics of it. And this is the second meeting, and today we have the personnel from the Department of Public Safety to come in and testify. They seem to have the biggest problem, although the Department of Natural Resources Game and Fish Division has similar problems with retention. In my legislative job, I do the budget for all the public safety agencies, and it's very obvious to me that some other agencies have problems too, particularly in the prison system and juvenile justice system. But we're not here to address them today, so I'd like to introduce everybody. I'm Bill Hitchens. I'm chairman of Public Safety Appropriations in the House. With us, we have Chairman Collins, who's the chairman of Public Safety and Homeland Security, and Chairman Prince, who's the chairman of Urban Affairs. He sits right in front of me. I ought to know that. But this is my analyst, one of the brightest people around. She keeps me out of trouble. She's a double deal. She's a lawyer and a accountant. So she does a great job as we do our budget every year. And then my executive assistant next to her, who also is a bright guy, keeps me out of trouble. And I think he was one of the 30 people in Georgia that was named to the Governor's Honors Program a couple of years ago, and just graduated from Georgia Tech with a 3.9 something GPA. And he's waiting till his fiance graduates from Tech, and they're going to go to work for NASA. And he's biding his time here while that's going on. So I'm surrounded by some pretty sharp people. And with us today, you want to introduce yourself?
I'm Lieutenant Colonel Billy Hitchens with the Georgia State Patrol Department of Public Safety.
Josh Lamb, Lieutenant Colonel, Georgia State.
And they're going to provide us some specific information with regard to their agency. And I always like to be forthright in my dealings. And I was the commissioner of the Department of Public Safety for 7 years, and Lieutenant Colonel Hitchens is my son, so I have to treat him with respect or I can't go home. And I've known Josh Lamb, and his daddy was a trooper too. I've known them forever, but they're both very adept. I've heard them testify before, and they provided us with a lot of information. And online we have Chairman Eddie Lumpson, who's a retired state trooper too, and he's the chairman of the Insurance Committee in the House. And Mandy Ballinger, who's also, is she online? And Mandy Ballinger. And the speaker really picked a good crowd to be on this committee for Mandy Ballinger, who's the chairman of Juvenile Justice. So all of us on a continuous basis work in the criminal justice field in some way. So which one of you wants to start off?
I'll go ahead and start.
Okay.
Good morning, Chairman Hitchens and committee members. It is an honor to be here and speak on behalf of the Georgia Department of Public Safety. Like I said, I'm Lieutenant Colonel Billy Hitchens, the Georgia Department of Public Safety's Deputy Commissioner. I'm joined today by Lieutenant Colonel Josh Lamb. Our biggest challenge in law enforcement is finding people to join our profession and stay an entire career. The national media has called the staffing shortage a crisis that requires immediate attention. It takes a particular person to step forward and answer the call of duty, knowing they may have to pay the ultimate sacrifice. Nationwide, we saw 43% more resignations and 24% more retirements in 2021 than in 2019, and nearly 50% more resignations in 2022 than in 2019. Retirements decreased slightly in 2022, but agents reported nearly 20% more retirements than in 2019. As a department, we have seen a 47% reduction in total applications on average for trooper schools going back to 2015. As seen in tab 2 of your booklet, Georgia is currently ranked 36th in starting trooper salary, with many states aggressively increasing their salary and benefits package to lure candidates. In 1937, the motoring public advocated for a law enforcement agency with statewide arrest powers to help deal with growing traffic fatalities and increased crime. Thus, the Georgia Department of Public Safety was created. DPS is now made up of 3 divisions and employs approximately 1,600 employees. The divisions are the Georgia State Patrol, Motor Carrier Compliance, and Capitol Police. DPS is uniquely positioned as the lead emergency support function ESF 13 agency in the state and can respond in large numbers to natural or man-made disasters, civil disturbances, or public health emergencies. As seen in tab 3, our current staffing numbers as of July 31st are 799 troopers, 240 motor carrier officers, 24 Capitol Police officers, and 133 dispatchers. One must understand that the department is aimed to reach 1,000 troopers for as long as I've been employed. However, while the population of Georgia has continued to grow, we've yet to be able to accomplish this goal. We must find a way to fill our trooper schools to capacity. As illustrated in tab 4, Georgia ranks 50th in troopers per capita. As our trooper strength decreases, traffic fatalities increase. While we primarily focus on traffic enforcement and crash reduction, we are also a support agent to many local jurisdictions across the state. DPS has units that possess specialized skills and provide specialized services to provide this support. These specialized units are the Nighthawks DUI Task Force, Criminal Interdiction Unit, Crime Suppression Unit, Implied Consent Unit, Specialized Collision Reconstruction Team, State of Georgia SWAT, Aviation Division, GSP Dive Team, Motorcycle Unit, Regional K-9 Task Force, Nuclear Radiological Detection Team, and the Office of Public Safety Support. Our specialty units provide services to other law enforcement agencies who don't have the resources to provide them for themselves. In most areas of the state, we are the only agency that can perform the specialized services required. As our manpower decreases, our ability to conduct our traditional role of traffic enforcement and the ability to provide these specialized services becomes difficult. Please see tab 5 for statistical data related to our specialty units. As you know, training is critically important. Where basic mandate training is 408 hours, troopers attend an academy totaling over 1,500 hours. Our motor carrier officers attend an academy totaling over 1,200 hours. As you can see, DPS takes training very seriously and places a premium on well-trained officers. Our training is lengthy and challenging, but absolutely necessary because it prepares them to survive the dangerous and exigent circumstances they will face. It also sets the professional standard we demand and the public expects. Lowering our training standards to increase employment is not a viable solution. It would only lead to a disastrous outcome and liability for our state. So why are we here? I want to discuss the recruitment and retention issues we're experiencing today. Recruiting has been difficult for several years. However, events over the past 2.5 years have exacerbated the problem. The COVID pandemic started in March 2020, and while most were working from home, our officers and troopers were coordinating and delivering PPE around the state. While the virus was still prevalent, we stood on the front lines and dealt with protests across the state, following the George Floyd, Rashad Brooks, and Breonna Taylor incidents. The media and some leaders in our community nationwide began to demonize the police. People without understanding with what it's like to be involved in a rapidly evolving life and death situation started scrutinizing every officer's decision. Cities started defunding their police departments while demanding greater accountability and more training, both of which cost money. Next, law enforcement had to deal with a bail reform effort that allowed repeat offenders to roam and brutalize our streets. Then came the calls for repealing qualified immunity. You cannot expect police officers to confront dynamic and hostile situations, make split-second decisions without qualified immunity. When officers do not have qualified immunity, they will not act because they have no protection. Here in Georgia, on the state level, our governor, lieutenant governor, speaker of the House, and the legislative body showed great support for our men and women in law enforcement, and we thank y'all for that. However, you cannot expect them to ignore all the noise they hear in the news media. All these factors are forcing officers to become fatigued with our profession. They feel that support is ending and the job is not worth the risk. Officers feel that they could be one traffic stop away from being on the national news, publicly scrutinized, or facing criminal prosecution, even though they may be 100% justified in their actions. Officers near retirement are deciding to hang it up. It has made others rethink their career choice and leave the profession altogether. All of this has combined to make it difficult to convince people to choose and remain in this profession. We were primarily concerned about recruiting, getting officers in the front door. We're now having an equally hard time keeping our current officers from walking out the back door. Our current officers are our best recruiters, so when we lose them, we also lose the next generation of officers. The current environment has created a competitive bidding war within law enforcement community. Agencies are now competing over an ever-decreasing pool of candidates. The agencies that are most agile and nimble in their response get the best results. Local agencies can quickly address their needs through monthly commission meetings or city council meetings. State law enforcement depends on the annual legislative session. In addition to increasing starting salaries, other agencies in neighboring states have become very adept at offering pay raises, supplements, and incentives to create more appealing employment packages. For example, education incentives, moving expenses, signing bonuses, and I've seen advertisements as high as $75,000 for a signing bonus. Free or reduced health insurance and language incentives are offered to lure applicants and retain senior officers. It is becoming very difficult to compete with the employment packages offered by other law enforcement agencies. It is important to note we also compete with the federal government, such as the FBI, Secret Service, and ATF. Lieutenant Colonel Lamb will now discuss what we've done to try and recruit and retain our employees.
Thank you, Colonel Hitchens. Good afternoon, everyone. I want to start by talking about recruitment. We have a recruiting unit which actively seeks out and recruits potential candidates for employment. These recruiters host and attend recruiting events to engage recruits in the employment process. They then stay engaged with the recruit through the hiring process and make every effort to get them from the starting line to the finish line. However, as mentioned, it is difficult to get people to apply, which is reflected in the 47% decline in applications mentioned earlier. We then require physical fitness test, polygraph, medical exam, psychological evaluation, and an oral interview board, as well as requirements for certification as a police officer set by post. This must all occur before they ever appear for their first day of trooper school. However, due to the high liability involved in this profession, it is critically important to vet potential officers before hiring them. Therefore, our process is extensive and many candidates are lost in screening. The candidates then attend a school that is mentally and physically challenging. It takes DPS approximately 1 year to onboard a candidate and get them through trooper school. According to the Department of Audits and Accounts, it costs approximately $153,397 per candidate to complete the process. Please see tab 6 for a breakdown of this cost. As you can see, DPS invests a lot of time and money in our hiring and training process. From fiscal year 2018 to 2023, 48 troopers left the agency on a full service retirement. These were employees where the state received a full return on its investment because they served an entire career. During that same period, 341 left for other reasons. Based on the initial training cost of these troopers, this cost the state at a minimum $52.3 million. I want to explain what DPS has done to address these issues. We implemented an accelerated and blended trooper school model. The accelerated school is 14 weeks long and is for sworn officers only. This is opposed to the 34 weeks it takes to complete a traditional trooper school. The blended school combines the accelerated and traditional school models into one school. This saves time and money while filling job vacancies in the most expeditious means possible. Our first accelerated school was the 112th, which began in January of 2022. The 116th started on September 10th with 19 cadets attending, and sadly, we're already down to 15. We appreciate the $11,000 pay increases to our sworn staff over the last 2 years. This allowed us to increase the starting salary for trooper school to $58,350. We needed to do this to attract more candidates to trooper school. But unfortunately, with the competitive market for law enforcement officers, this salary has not increased our applicant pool. We are assigning officers within driving distance of home. This prevents someone from having to move or live away from home after graduating from trooper school. This lessens the financial and personal burden on individuals, making employment more appealing. We changed our uniform and appearance policy to allow people with tattoos to become sworn members of DPS. They must be able to cover up their tattoos with our Class A uniform, which is a long sleeve shirt. We felt like we were losing a lot of prior military personnel and current police officers to this requirement, so we made a change. With the help of the governor's office, OPB, and legislators, we implemented a 10% pay supplement for our officers working in the Atlanta metro area. This was to help us be more competitive with metro agencies. Those same stakeholders helped us implement a senior and master trooper program. This plan provided additional structure to our pay scale for tenured employees. This was an effort to help us retain our most senior officers who have the most knowledge. The importance can be seen in tab 3 with the realization that 70% of our troopers have 14 years or less of experience, with half of our troopers having less than 9 years of experience. We increased communication officers' pay by 10%. This was direly needed. Our communications officers are a critical part of our agency and serve as a lifeline for our officers. We lost communication officers to 911 centers and had to be more competitive. We experienced a 37% turnover rate in fiscal year 2022 and a 26% turnover rate in fiscal year 23. Unfortunately, we are currently experiencing a 53% turnover when annualized. For that reason, we created a proposed career path for communication officers, and it can be found in tab 7. We implemented a tenured-based pay scale for our secretaries in hopes of being able to fill vacancies while retaining institutional knowledge. Again, we lost many of our secretaries to private enterprises and local governments. Finally, we're working to build public support and trust. We participate in community events such as Faith and Blue Weekend. We've had numerous legislators participate in ride-alongs to expose them to our agency's daily work. Realize there are positive stories that occur every day that remain untold. Unfortunately, the media often focuses on the small portion of negative stories that come to their attention. Therefore, we're trying to tell better the positive things that our people do every day. So solutions, where do we go from here? We must incentivize personnel to come into this profession and stay. We are in dire need of a new generation interested in the law enforcement profession. So how do we do that? We must increase pay. The traditional salaries once associated with law enforcement are no longer effective. As the rhetoric and animosity towards police rise, so does the salary that must be paid to someone to come into and stay in this profession. If we expect someone to come into this job, working late at night, alone, on holidays and weekends, while facing down the fear of having their lives destroyed by a decision they are forced to make, or an action they are forced to take, or God forbid, being killed in the line of duty, they are going to have to be paid a sum that justifies that risk. It comes down to a simple risk analysis. Is it worth this to do that? If the answer is no, they will simply find something else to do. Our current 401k retirement plan does not encourage people to stay with DPS. The retirement is portable and the employees treated as such. They often leave our department to work with other law enforcement agencies or in the private sector. While we hope to see positive change due to the recent upgrade to the retirement plan, a defined benefit retirement plan would further help combat the recruitment and retention issues we face and help anchor our employees to the department. In addition to the solutions already mentioned, some additional considerations would be implementing annualized cost of living raises. Cost of living raises would add stability and predictability for our employees while offsetting the cost of inflation. Implementing an education incentive would encourage everyone to continue their education and be lifelong learners. This would allow for a more educated and professional workforce, which benefits the officer, the department, and society. I also mentioned healthcare costs are a concern. Many agencies have free or reduced rate healthcare in comparison to the state. Reducing healthcare costs would be very beneficial and make for a much more lucrative employment package. In summary, recruitment and retention are ongoing problems for DPS. Each person we lose prior to full retirement is a negative return on the state's investment. Changing our 401k to a defined benefit plan would be a crucial step in the right direction. Increasing pay is critical, in creating interest and recruiting people into this profession, while a defined benefit retirement plan would be a great tool for retaining them. And with that, I will yield, and Lieutenant Colonel Hitchens and I will attempt to answer any questions that you may have.
Any members of the committee have any questions? What's your number?
You know, when you dive down and look at this information as it's presented and you see just what dire straits we are in at DPS. I don't say that to shock anyone or to scare anyone, but when you specifically look at the number of troopers that we have compared to our population, compared to those other states, that's a sobering reminder that time is of the essence to fix some of these problems. You know, I was fortunate enough to grow up in a community. We had a post. I grew up with a lot of trooper kids, and their dads were troopers, and you know that post was the center of the universe, so to speak. I mean, there was always something going on. When something happened, there were troopers there, and you know I think they're operating now on less than half of what they used to 30 years ago. Yet their call volume is continuing to go through the roof, and I just want to say thank you for bringing us this information. You know, figures don't lie; they are what they are, and this is not something that's happened over the last 5 or 10 years. This is something that's been happening, and with the political climate being the way it is, the spotlight has been focused on this, and it's become more of an issue today than it was 3 years ago. So thank you for bringing this to us, and I would have to concur with you. You know, the benefits and the pay have to increase for us to be able to get those numbers up. That's the bottom line.
Thank you. Chairman Prince.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and gentlemen, colonels. Thank you for your service, and thank you for presenting to us today. Sounds almost like the Teachers Association, things like that, trying to get them back in class, but totally different because you guys are putting your lives on the line every day you step out. So, and I understand increasing pay, and as you mentioned, the General Assembly, we've done some things. I'm saying we did our best, or that's all we can do, but I don't think any amount of pay is when you start saying, okay, is it worth this and worth that? So that pay thing is, I mean, I think it's needed, don't get me wrong, but I don't think it's any amount of pay for what you guys do. So just one thing. You mentioned healthcare. Is that mean that you're not part of a state healthcare plan that you cannot access?
We are. It's just a recommendation that you see in some states and some cities and counties that do a reduced health care or free health care for their sworn personnel.
Okay, good.
And yes, we are in the same health care as all state employees.
Good deal. And I also, I think Colonel Lamb mentioned that the part about the some of the things that you're doing to trying to be proactive in recruiting, and being a prior military guy, I know that military, they, for lack of better words, they lower the standards to get folks in, and then as they weed them out. But usually the good ones stay because they see the light at the end. They see that retirement, they see that 401k, they see that healthcare, and they understand that they have families. With the others who they're just going to fall to the side. So have you guys, other than you mentioned something about the tattoos now being covered up, anything else that you guys have been able to do? And I hate to use the word lower the standards, but we got to do something to get people here. And I think that's the biggest thing, is getting them in the door.
Well, Mr. Chairman, we do, we've got billboards up, we do commercials, we do all that, trying to get the information out. We actually do a ride along. If you're interested in apply, you can actually come ride and see what this job's about. One of the things you mentioned is talking about lowering standards, and we have not lowered our standards, but we have massaged some of the things that we do that were prior disqualifications or reduce the time on some things like that. But right now, if you apply and you pass all our tests, unless we have probably 3 or 4 people each school, that is all that does not get in the door. So if you meet all the qualifications, you have a very high likely chance of starting and attending trooper school. And we do weed out a lot through the process. But if you have the qualifications, the interest, and you can pass through our background or our polygraph, you have a very high likely chance to start trooper school.
And one thing I just wanted to, and I know you can't be everywhere all the time. I mean, troopers, I see them up and down I-20 every now and then, but have we, some probably you're already doing, as far as using cameras and things like that to help with the traffic patrol piece of it? Because again, you guys can't be everywhere all the time. Have you done some things like that to help mitigate some of the having so many people, for lack of better words, having everybody out there,
Now, I don't know if I really understand what you mean by using cameras. We do use some cameras for intelligence gathering and help solve some crimes like flock cameras or
I'm
loot
talking about like
makers.
speeding and
No,
stuff
sir,
like
we do
that.
not use speed enforcement cameras.
Okay.
No, sir.
I'm just trying to
one-
keep people off the streets and have them do other stuff.
One thing I would revisit that we talked about briefly was that accelerated trooper school model. And I think that's one of the things that we took a look and said, what can we do to make this more appealable to more people? And one of the things you always heard about going to trooper school was it was too long, and I'm pre-certified or, prior certified. Do I have to go all the way through trooper school? So we looked at that, and one of the things we tried to make a trade-off on was years of experience versus the entirety of trooper school. And so we come up with this accelerated model, which shortened the length of time, but we thought held the standard that we needed. And I think that was probably one of the biggest steps we've taken toward doing exactly what you said, that enabled us to try to make it more appealing while at the same time holding the standard that we thought we needed.
So essentially, those people who are post-certified, and I understand this, now don't have to retake the courses that they've already taken in post-certification school. So what they do is they start off and all that they have to comply with now is the additional courses that the State Patrol Training Academy offers.
Yeah, sure, which reduces the time to
Right,
14 weeks
significantly.
versus it's 32 or 34
Right.
weeks for the traditional school.
Reduces the time and cost.
Any of our personnel on Zoom have any questions they would like to ask?
And I would like to say, just in full disclosure, we use the numbers that we sent y'all when the first meeting was done. We have graduated a trooper school September 9th with 37 new people. So our numbers are a little higher than 799.
Anybody on?
Representative Lumsden.
Oh, okay.
Hello?
We should be able to hear him. Just right.
Yes,
Okay.
Tell him we can hear him.
yes. Can you hear me?
Oh, I'd like to recognize Chairman Lumpson, who's on Zoom with us today. He's in Washington, DC. I appreciate him taking the time and effort to change his travel arrangements so that he could be with us.
Glad to do it. One question I
Speak up
had
a little
in
bit.
regard,
If you can.
okay. One question I had in regard to the retirement. In general, what I've observed in talking with folks in the younger generation, they don't think so much about retirement. Has there been any feedback from those that you have spoken with as to how effective or how important the retirement factor is for our new hires?
Yes, sir. We did a survey and I gave it to Sean for y'all to have. When we asked our employees what were their most pressing concerns, and retirement was one of the top number. You'll see it in that survey is one of their major concerns, which also surprised us. And when we go around to the state, we do it every 2 years. We talk to our people and ask them what their concerns are, and retirement is their number one concern.
And the survey was completely anonymous, wasn't it?
That's correct.
Right,
Yes.
it's done electronically, so nobody knew, so they spoke their mind. Chairman Ballinger?
Sorry, I do apologize. I thank you for recognizing me, Chairman Hitchens. I was wondering if there were any extraneous things other than, we've kind of focused on salary, we've focused on retirement, we focused on dollars. Are there any non-dollars initiatives that we could effort that might see some retention efforts that might succeed as a retention effort, in the department? Anything other than money?
I'll touch on this and I think our agency and our leadership in this state does a very good job, but just public recognition. We see that a lot. When the people, the legislature or the governor, lieutenant governor, speaker reach out and tell our folks what a good job they do and recognize them, that means a lot to our people. So I think that is something that we definitely can do. And as a department, we try to do it tremendously. To say that we could increase that, I don't know that we can, because we do have a lot of support from our legislature and our leaders in this state. The governor, lieutenant governor, speaker really show their support for us. And as a department, we try and support our people when they're out doing something, and when they're right, irrespective of the noises that you hear from the community or news media or anybody else that wants to criticize them, we try to support them and show our support to them when we know that they're doing the right thing. Colonel Lamb, you got anything?
I would just add too, I would say that I think we've done a very good job of trying to self-critique ourselves and see everything that we could do that wouldn't have a physical impact. And sadly, I think we've done just about everything we can. And then when you compare that to the competitive bid market that we were talking about in law enforcement, if it was just contained within an agency, it would be a much more simple problem to solve. The problem is it's not. So every other agency is out there in this bidding market, and they are continuously increasing their hiring packages. So we're doing all we can on the local agency level within ourselves. But one of the biggest problems we're facing is all these other agencies right here doing the same thing. And it sets up this competitive bidding process that's pretty difficult to deal with.
And it's not just a local or state issue either. We have agencies from all over the country that come to Atlanta, come everywhere else and recruit here. Now, to be fair, we send people to other states to recruit as well. But you see people coming in, see billboards, actually having recruitment events in this state, trying to recruit people to come to their state. And they're offering higher incentive packages than what we do. But you also have to take into account cost of living. We realize that you're not going to get the same sign-on bonus, just like the $75,000 sign-on bonus that's in California. What does that equate to here? It's not 75,000. So we understand that.
Anything else, Chairman, Chairwoman?
No, thank you, Chairman Hitchens.
I've held off on questions, and very obviously I spent 43 years in the Department of Public Safety, and I have a great historical perspective. I came on in 1969. It was one of the most competitive positions, sought after positions in state government. I think in the class that I was in, there were 3,200 applicants, and they brought in 6 people off the street. All the rest of them were already state employees. We hired them as radio operators or license examiners, and they would do a 2 to 5 year stint and be evaluated, and then they could apply for trooper school. I was one of the 6 people that came in off the street. I just got out of the Marine Corps. But our state has changed dramatically. At that time, 1970 census, we had 4.5 million people in Georgia. Now we got 11 million. I'm from Savannah. I had to drive up here for all the evaluations and for trooper school, and the interstate system wasn't open. It took me 6 hours to drive up here from Savannah. It was piecemeal all the way. 285 wasn't completed. Half the interstate system we have now wasn't completed. And we had 700 troopers in the state, which is just about equates to what we have now, because they picked up so many specialty details and so many other details that, just like this crime suppression unit in Atlanta. I've followed the figures on that, and a small number of troopers have been up here working weekends now for about, a year and a half. And you look at the statistics, how many murders they've arrested, how many stolen cars, how many millions of dollars worth of merchandise that those cars were worth. And, we just never seemed to get any better. And I've been around all the neighboring states and all around the country. And, you know, South Carolina, that's half our size and half our population, have over 1,000 troopers. Florida's got right at 2,000. North Carolina's got about 2,000. Kentucky's got 1,000. New Orleans, Louisiana's got 1,000. The average, and you already heard this, the average number of troopers per population is for every 100,000 persons in Georgia, we have 8 troopers. The national average is 24. If we were to come up to the national average right now, we would have to triple our size. And I've just always wondered how we ever let that happen. And I was a part of it. I mean, I am. But when I came on, I think health insurance was $18 a month, and it paid for everything. Of course, everybody's on the same health insurance program. We had a little bit different retirement. We had a completely different pay scale. It was just within the Department of Public Safety, which at that time was the State Patrol, the GBI, the Public Safety Training Center, Governor's Office of Highway Safety, Arson Investigation, the Crime Lab, everything was in one agency. But where we fell down, I don't know. It's just we've never grown. In my home county, we worked the Savannah area, Chatham, Effingham, and Bryan County, and I think we got 8 or 9 troopers now. They work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They get their vacation time, they get sick time. Most of them have a wad of compensatory time because they don't get paid overtime. And I talked to a chief of police the other day at a medium-sized city in Georgia. And he told me he was looking to hire as many people as he could find, and he was interested in troopers. And he said, our city will pay a $10,000 bonus to anybody that comes in that's post-certified. We will give them credit pay-wise for every year they have in post-certification, up to 10 years. So if they've got a pay scale, they start off at people that have been in the agency for 10 years. We will give them credit for their retirement for 10 years, if they have 10 years post-service. Of course, we have the gratuities clause in Georgia Constitution, and we can't do anything like that. And it's a real detriment. I understand it, and I understand when they did the Constitution, probably why they did that, but it's really been a hindrance. And I could go on and on. You know, the legislature is full of businessmen, and we discuss it all the time. And most of them are opposed to defined contribution. They don't do it. They don't do it for their employees. But what we have now is supply and demand. They understand that. If you've got the demand and you can't supply it, you got to pay for it. And I think somebody's got to make a decision about, as we move forward, about which way we're going. I ride back and forth to Savannah all the time now on I-16. I didn't see a trooper. I came up here early this morning. I didn't see a trooper all the way, and that's more the routine than the exception. There just aren't that many out there, and we have so many that do other things and get called upon for. I think the public and a lot of people in state government have no idea how many times they get called on to do special events, and they think nothing. They say, "Send me 200 troopers. We're going to have a fair here," or you know. Besides the civil disorder issues, and so it's come to the breaking point. And like I said, I've been. I don't know what it's beneficial to say this, but you know, most of the northern states are union. They don't pay anything for health insurance, and they get it for the rest of their life, zero. In New Jersey, if you've been on 5 or 6 years, you make over $100,000 a year, and we can't compete with that. And I'm against unionization. I don't think. Certainly they get better benefits, but I don't think as a society it would be beneficial to us to have law enforcement officers that are unionized. And even though it'd probably be against the law to walk off, I think it's a bad omen and a bad way to go. But and that's the reason for this committee, is to try and get factual data, analyze it, and make some determination about as a state about how we're going to go with this and what we want to do. And you know. Retirements, the disability retirements are just, and some doctors said that they're disabled, but they have gone up tremendously since they get a better benefit if they take a disability retirement than they do if they stay 30 years. The day I retired, there was another person that was a major that retired, and he said, I just came back from the retirement system. I've got 30 years. If I take a disability retirement, I'll get 90%. If I take my regular retirement, I get 60%. So, I mean, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to figure out what's going on there. And Sonny Perdue was the governor when I was the commissioner, and boy, he really didn't like some of the people that were taking disability retirements that didn't look like they had a disability, because the standard is, and you all know this, a lot of the other people don't, the standard is the same as when you came on. You're supposed to meet the same standard for physical ability as you did when you're hired. And when you're 22 or 25, your physical capabilities are not the same as when you're 50, 55 and 60. We got some working now, I guess, over 60, hadn't we? So, and I see Chairman Prince.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, I just wanted to look at the recommendation. I mean, I'd be interested in the recommendations that, I mean, you called out a couple of things, but I'd like to see something in writing, because this packet is great. This is a good breakdown, and I'm glad you sent this. It helps me understand it better. But those recommendations, and then hopefully we can look at some of those and sort of vet them through the system.
There's an interest. I just don't know how we do retirement. Because they've been in the same system with everybody else for so long. I don't say, there's somewhat resentment when other people get something you don't.
Right.
And I think there's going to be a big push. I've already heard it. I get calls from retired state employees and some other people that are opposed to any change in retirement, because the retirement system doesn't have enough money, they say, to provide for cost of living increases for the state employees' retirement system. So they said, if you all get a bigger retirement system, we will never get a cost of living increase. So somebody's got to make some hard decision.
And Chairman, I think if we as legislators, I'll be interested because, like you say, they're in every county. I mean, they're local. If it's something we can do to help promote them, being, whether it's through town halls, having them show up, just saying a few words, not so much recruiting, but just seeing them, means it goes a long way, especially in some of the communities that I work with. They see them and they have the stigma, police officers, but not knowing what these things, what they really do and what they stand for. So, we just need to see if it's something that we can do as legislators to help.
Well, it's kind of a generalization from some of the episodes they've seen on TV where somebody really did something wrong and it was captured on camera, and they see that, and they're, in some people's belief, they think that that everybody does that, and the police are to be feared. Chairman Collins.
I got one more question. I can ask questions all day long because this is just fascinating material to me. On page, let's see, where are we here? Tab 3, page 1 of 4. Down at the bottom, I'm just curious, the number of Capitol police officers looks like it's around 24. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
And I don't want to put you on the spot too much, but let's just say in the middle of January, February, when we're in session, doesn't it take more than 24 to operate the buildings and look after things?
Yes, sir. It certainly does. We have post 50 that is Capitol Hill
Right.
post that's made of troopers that are
Right.
also works the Capitol Hill area. And we also detach people to come in. We bring troopers from the field and motor carrier officers from the field to supplement those numbers when the session's ongoing.
How many does it take normally on an average day? I mean, do you mind saying? I mean, do you know?
I would say we're in the 25, 30 people a day.
Okay.
I don't want to give out our numbers
Sure.
for security purposes, but it takes a lot because we're not just focused on the Capitol itself. We do all the state buildings on the Capitol Hill area, and it's 24-hour coverage, 7 days a week.
Because I know that I have some colleagues that they like to complain maybe about the special units that we have that do crime suppression in Atlanta. But the reality is we've been pulling from the state patrol to fill in here at the Capitol, January, February, March, during those times. So what would be the ideal number for Capitol Police? Do you know? I mean, 60, 70? I mean, would that be, if you triple the size of that?
Well, the Capitol Police, we have a goal of having 30 Capitol Police officers. And the reason behind that is they're supplemented by troopers. Now, if we turn it all over to straight Capitol Hill police officers, that number would certainly increase.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions? Anybody in the audience want to make a statement or come to the podium? Yeah, I see Jordan Watson in the back there, who's represents the Attorney General's office, and whom I just spoke with last night, but I doubt that he wants to speak on behalf of the Attorney General. Well, we certainly appreciate it. We always, through all my years, we've appreciated the support the Attorney General's always given us and been our attorney whenever we have problems, and that's certainly appreciated throughout the state. So thank you. And for taking the time to come over today and hear what's going on. So, but if we don't have any other questions, I could talk all day about Chairman Prince would probably leave pretty soon thereafter, but that concludes the meeting. Then I appreciate everybody coming, and I appreciate the presenters for gathering all that material and putting it together for us so that we could get a good handle on just exactly what is transpiring. So we're adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.